but transition. Speaking of bad movies that might just be low key racist,
Yeah.
or at the very least, they aren't complimentary to people with differences.
No.
Blankman.
No. Uh, yeah.
Daniel, there are weeks where I'm very happy with the things I choose for us to watch, and then there are weeks where I feel like I owe you a written apology. I had never seen this movie before, and I get the feeling that you didn't either.
I had seen like parts of it on, I think, when it aired on Comedy Central like a long time ago, but
Mm,
I wasn't really paying much attention to it.
gotcha. So a background watch.
Yeah.
This is one that I had been seeing on movie shelves since I was a kid. This is in that same category as The Burbs, where it's like I recognize this poster immediately,
Hmm.
just because you go through the comedy section and there it is at the Blockbuster all the time.
Yeah, I think I remember seeing it there too. Yeah, when I was a kid.
But Daniel,
Mhm.
to tell them the premise of this delightful comedy romp.
Okay. Damon Wayans plays Daryl Walker, who's a savant of a sort, clearly on the spectrum.
Oh
Um,
yeah,
and he's living in I don't think they ever said what city they
I,
were
I
living in.
think it's supposed to be Chicago.
Okay. Yeah, so they're in Chicago, and they're living with their he's living with his brother and his grandmother. And his brother's played by David Allen Greer.
Who's also just in the Society of Magical
Hmm.
that
Yes.
we briefly talked about during the box office.
Yeah. And he so Daryl is like I said, he's a savant, and he's very good with engineering, like doing mechanical stuff. Like he actually has a uh, somewhat autonomous robot that he made. Looked like he made it out of a sink.
He had also like it was like a sink, and the head is like a pom pom with like I think sunglasses on it or something.
Yeah, yeah, and it had the little lighting eyes. Yeah.
Yeah,
Um, and so the crux of the movie is that his brother is completely normal, or well, he's not challenged or anything, and he's a cameraman working for at a news station but he works for a TV show called Hard Edition, which is a combination of two tabloid shows that were pretty big in the 90s. One of them's still on, Hard Copy and Inside Edition. And
yeah.
yeah.
Eh, And it features Jason Alexander of all people as the editor in chief, and you wonder how the heck he got here.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I wonder that too. Yeah, because he must have had some time off filming Seinfeld to do it.
Was this contemporary with Seinfeld?
Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Seinfeld was like 90 to 99, I think, or 98.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah. Between and I guess they didn't have him playing Abyss Small in Disney's Aladdin, which is a role I know him for.
right. Yeah.
But
Um,
uh,
yeah, and the other thing too is there's the newscaster at the station. David Allen Greer's got a thing for. She's played by Robin Givens.
tell them what you told me. That really just
Yeah,
surprised me.
yeah. So Robin Givens in the late '80s was married to Mike Tyson.
Right.
It didn't
Which
last very long,
yeah.
which is I'm sure would surprise nobody.
What Mike Tyson in the '80s being unstable? What?
What? Yeah. Um, but yeah. So the inciting incident is their grandmother is volunteering for this mayoral campaign. So this guy's running for mayor, and he's promising to clean up the city and all this stuff, and then the this mob guys show up trying to hustle him, shake him down, and he said no. And then like later that night, they come in and rob the campaign office, and then
Yeah,
kill all the
and the main character's grandmother, who works there, gets mouthy with them, and they don't care for it.
right. Yeah. So after this happens, Damon Wayans he's obviously very upset. He wants to do something about it, and decides to become a vigilante superhero wearing a very horrible put together costume.
Yeah, and yeah, this was so this show is weird, or this movie is weird.
Yes, yeah,
Um, so I think this was clearly greenlit, and it actually got a big budget for 1990, whatever, 30 million for a dumb comedy movie like this. Apparently,
wow.
wonder if that, wonder how much of that
Yeah.
was paychecks.
Oh, I'm sure. I'm sure a lot of it was, yeah, for Damon Wayans, because I think he was pretty. His star was kind of on the rise right around this time.
Yeah, yeah, he was big on In Living Color with, well, I
Jim.
think he was the main draw of In Living Color, wasn't he?
Yeah, between him and Jim Carrey, yeah,
Yeah, and I did keep. So I looked into this a little bit, and I did find some positive-ish reviews on YouTube. So clearly, this is a case of comedy being a bit subjective.
yeah,
Um, Apparently, this seems to have been partially based on one of his characters from In Living Color, Handyman, who was a handicapped superhero who showed up for the Justice League. And I think your enjoyment of this movie is entirely based on how funny you find Damon's performance as Daryl.
yeah, yeah. I would agree with that. Yeah,
Because I could because I also feel like the fact that Damon is Daryl is kind of against the movie, because in the first half of the movie, it seems like his big brother is the point of view character.
yeah, yeah, and then it kind of flips to him, which is
And I kept thinking to myself, maybe we'd have been better off if David Allen Greer had been the superhero and Damon had been his like gadget guy, his Q.
right. Yeah,
Because then
yeah,
he would have had a more normal character.
yeah, and well, the other part of it too is David Allen Greer. He actually knows how to fight because he's been taking karate.
Right. So it actually all fits together, but
Yeah,
no, and it's all in the serve. And also you would have already had the I think that the reporter lady was clearly like patterned a bit on the Vicky Vale character from the '89 Batman.
yeah.
Oh,
I was definitely seeing a lot of that. Yeah,
yeah, especially in their interactions,
mhm.
because she does develop a thing for Blankman, even though he's a god a weird guy.
Yeah. We can't say the word that we want to say. We
No,
necessarily want to say, but
he
yeah,
clearly has a touch of the tism and maybe some other issues too.
yeah,
The, the other thing I'll say is that it's like comedy is kind of based on what you're willing to accept.
yeah,
Like if I think back to a movie we did a few months back, Ernest Saves Christmas,
hmm
that had a lot of goofy stuff in it that isn't quite real, but I felt like it justified itself enough. Like okay, like Ernest's ability to just generate a costume with no clear place where that costume would come from.
yeah, 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 and yeah, have a complete disguise ready to go. Yeah,
Right, like there was nowhere he had to store that disguise. You saw the bed of his truck when they tossed the snakes in. There was no like suitcases in there for him to hold the disguise in.
right. Yeah,
So you kind of just have to accept it. Um, with this one, I feel like the technology that he was playing with
hmm
was just a little bit too goofy and nonsensical to credit.
yeah, yeah. Well, they were s- a lot of it. They felt like I kind of felt like they were parodying the Adam West Batman. You know,
Yeah.
especially there's even this part during the climax where they straight up parody it.
Right. It's weird. So the movie starts with them trying to watch Adam West Batman as kids, and clearly stuck with Daryl, who's Damon,
Yeah,
and it's like they drop that. Like they have they have Daryl say a couple of things like curses. Yeah,
yeah,
he's kind of patterned himself a little bit on Batman, but they don't go full into the parody until the last minute when uh, David Allen Greer's character gets his own costume.
yeah. Yeah, and he quickly finds out that one of the things is Damon Wayne's costume is that he figures out a way to make it bulletproof, but David Allen Greer's isn't.
Yeah, it's like David. Yeah, he's acting like he's all tough and like, yeah, what's gonna? Yeah, I'm fine. After all, I have the costume. Blam.
Yeah,
That's what I was trying to tell you. Holy crap! I was shot.
yeah,
I would say that the best jokes in the movie are actually everyone but Damon. Um,
yeah. I think that the reason I had a hard time laughing at him was because of because he's clearly special, and I have a hard time making fun of and laughing at somebody who
right.
this-
It's the old Tropic Thunder thing. You don't go full,
right, yeah,
and he went full.
he went full, yeah.
Um, if they'd like, if he that could have worked as a secondary character. Now, I will say the one thing I'll say in his defense is that like they do actually have a scene where he goes to see a psychologist, and the psychologist thinks he's totally normal and
Yeah.
actually brilliant. Um, I will say he never feels bad about himself in the way he is.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
he like the character is kind of admirable in that way, just for being very comfortable in his own skin. But it's just to use a
It's
phrase, it feels like punching down.
yeah. Yeah. Um yeah, and the 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 rest of the humor is just kind of like real I don't want I don't want to say juvenile, but kind of juvenile. I
Yeah.
felt like I was watching an Adam Sandler movie.
Yes. Or maybe a Jim Carrey movie from the time.
Yeah.
Um, so I say that the best I say the best joke in the whole thing is when the mob guys are trying to threaten Jason Alexander. He's in a wheelchair,
Yeah. Yeah.
and he's just very bombastic. Like, one of the better things is they're coming up with their stories. He's literally throwing darts at a board. The vice president
Yeah.
with lesbian necrophiles. Go.
Yeah. Yeah.
um, and so the mob traces Blankman to have a connection to this, and they're trying to rough him up. So they just pour a pot of boiling coffee into his lap. He's like, "Did you notice that I'm sitting in a wheelchair?
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't feel nothing down there."
Yeah. Yeah. Not doing anything.
He's like, "I'm willing to help you." Oh, okay. And so then the mob boss sits down in a wheeled like an office chair, just like,
Yeah.
walk with me, and they will go along, and the mob boss is just going along with them. That was probably my favorite joke in the movie.
Yeah. Yeah. I like that one too. Yeah.
I'd also say that the joke that was wasted the most because it wasn't clear what they were going for. I think they did a Batman Adam West out like transition
Yeah.
to cut to